Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while. It's been 15 months as a matter of fact. I haven't made a battle report since December of 2016. And I know that there have been at least a few of you who have been waiting very, very patiently for another one. And well, I had a few hours, so I decided to put something together. So without further ado, a new Fishbat battle report, using the new Clash of Kings 2018 rules, which I find to be very, very good. I was considering to do a little review of Clash of Kings 2018, but Andy2D6 did a review himself, and which was excellent and thorough, and I don't think I would have had anything further to add. If you're interested in Clash of Kings 2018, I would highly recommend you check out Andy2D6's review. Look at me, less than a minute, already on a tangent. Today, Abyssal Dwarfs vs Brotherhood, 2,000 points in the new Eliminate scenario, which I'll explain a little moment at point. Here are the notations that I'll be using for the game, and this will help you to follow the action as it unfolds. So let's have a look at this Brotherhood Army. Well, we have 2 units of Order of the Brotherhood, pretty similar to a generic knight unit. But what's interesting about these is that my opponent is taking a formation, which are new in this Clash of Kings 2018 book, and in the bottom right hand corner of the screen in the red box you see it says the Undaunted Crusaders. 2 units of Order of the Brotherhood and an Exemplar all get Pathfinder, and the Exemplar gets Banechant 2 as well, which is a really nice deal. Being able to ignore terrain is very, very nice for a cavalry army. Not entirely ignore it, you can't ignore obstacles, but difficult terrain at least. Very, very useful. What else do we have? Order of the Redemption. Possibly, very likely, the best unit in the Brotherhood list, and the whole reason you play Brotherhood. They are a wonderful unit. 2 Forsaken Beasts. Both of them have Breath Attack 10 and Ensnare. This makes them a very tough, points efficient unit. Defense 5, Ensnare, and 15-17 Nerve. They're cheap enough that you can send them out and receive charges and things like that. And Breath Attack lets them reach out and just annoy things and get rid of chaff. A lot of utility in those units. Spearmen with Dwarven Ale, just useful for holding the line. A Forsaker with a Brew of Healing up the back there. Just good to exploit gaps, get inside charges. The Exemplar we noted before with Banechant. An Adjutant on Steed to inspire, with the Loot of Insatiable Darkness as well to help give crushing strength. A Villain Bowman Horde with the Jar of 4 Winds. Villain Bowmen are quite good because they come with piercing, and because they come with phalanx. The idea is they're deploying with spikes, with what do you call them? The wooden spikes you put in the ground. Stakes. Stakes. They're deploying with stakes is the idea, which is what gives them phalanx against cavalry. And we also have a Villain Reconnoiter, a Horsey Troop. And the Horsey Troop is basically 100 points of nimble cavalry. And that's pretty much the list. Now, on the left-hand side of the board, we can see that we have a lot of cavalry bunched in very close. And you'll see these $ symbols. Well, in the Eliminate scenario, how it basically works is right in the middle of the board there's an objective worth 2 points if you hold it at the end of the game. But also, the 3 most expensive units in each army also get a bounty token, which you can see here are the Archers, the Redemption Knights, and the Forsaker. If this unit is defeated in melee, it's worth 2 points for the opposing general. If it's shot off of the board with range attacks, it's 1 point. And so this is the main way that we get points in the game. So all of the value targets are right up in this corner. Now you can't see it here, but the reason that the high value targets are in the corner are because of the way that I've deployed my artillery, my Anchor mortars, which are very strong, and the mortars can't find the Redemption Knights or the Forsaker here, so that's why they're hiding. As you can see, the archers, they have the little toe into the forest so that they can shoot through. And some other knights hiding behind the forest, of course. They've got Pathfinder so they can move through it. Yes, a lot of Thunderous Charge here now. Moving along to the centre of the board, you have the Adjutant in the centre to inspire. One beast, the spears just to hold the middle. In front of the spears you can't see it on the board, but if we were to come back just a little bit, you would see the objective would be dead in front of the spearman. And on the other side of the house is the other beast. And then, lonely by themselves on the far side of the board, there is the Reconnaisseurs troop. I think I said that correctly. And that's the Brotherhood deployment. You may see that little red dot in the middle of the board. That signifies the centre objective. Now let's look at my Abyssal Dwarf army. When I was making this army, I went about making the list in the way that I often do, which is to remember that I have a game within an hour, and oh, what do I have? I haven't done an infantry list for Abyssal Dwarfs. I've got Black Souls, I've got Immortals, I've got Berserkers, I've got Decimators. I've never used my Overmaster before. Okay, let's make a list and sort of just cobble it together and hope it works. And usually that works alright. So what have I got here? Well, on the right hand side behind the house, it's hard to see, but I've got some gargoyles there. I've got a Dragon Fire team, a dwarf with a flamethrower holding up the back, 2 Ankle Heavy Mortars, wonderful heavy artillery if they actually hit, a regiment of Immortals with 2-handed weapons and mutant dogs, an Overmaster with the newly retooled Medallion of Life. So he's actually a Defense 6 unit with Regen 5+. Quite a solid little fellow for 155 points. A horde of Dark Souls, Brew of Strength and Mutant Dogs. Abyssal Berserker troop just in front of them. As the game unfolds, it becomes very obvious that deploying Berserkers in front of Black Souls is a mistake, because they're a glass cannon. They hit very hard, but they can't take hits. They should have been deployed up the back to be able to respond to things better. But no, well, live and learn. Moving towards the centre, we have my other fire team, a regiment of Decimators, which it's a fairly expensive unit, 165 points, but 12 piercing 1 breath shots, not bad at all. The Slave Driver, who actually has the Loot of Insatiable Darkness to cast Banechant, Obsidian Golem Horde, the Abyssal Half-Breed Champion with the Blade of Slashing to reroll 1 miss. You can't see it here, but in front of the Obsidian Golems is the centre objective. So I like just having a really big, tough unit to sit on that objective, which is why they're there. And then onto my right-hand side, another unit of Gargoyles and a half-breed regiment with Potion of the Caterpillar. And there's my deployment. My expensive units with the bounty tokens are the Black Souls, the Golems, and the half-breeds. And I win the roll for first turn. So let's get into things. This is how I look before I start to move, and then I waste no time moving straight up. So it's a general move straight up across the board, except that I'm holding my gargoyles there in reserve. With a 20-inch move at the double, I'm happy keeping them in reserve. I'm pretty sure that I'm keeping everything out of range of that Forsaker. Otherwise, everything's moving up as quick as it can. Both of my mortars fire. One fires at the archers and misses, but the other one fires at the Forsaker and does a mighty 8 damage right off the bat, and that feels good. Nothing quite like doing 8 damage from 4 feet across the table as your first attack roll of the game, eh? Moving along, it's a general advance from the golems. I move a little bit cautiously with the half-breed cavalry, because I'm just conscientious of these reconnaisseurs trying to outflank me. But otherwise the half-breed champion and the gargoyles move ahead moderately, not too much, because I don't want them to be fireballed by the Forsaken Beast, which is just on the other side of that house there on the left. And that was the end of my first turn. Brotherhood turn 1. A general advance. You can see that on the left-hand side, the Forsaker moves up 10 inches right to the side of the house, and then does a 90-degree turn. So he's threatening my entire flank if I dare to move up. Also, having regenerate, he gets 1 point of health back, and so he's sitting on 7 points of damage. The Exemplar moves up just behind him. It's a general but cagey sort of advance from the Knights. The Spearman and the Forsaken Beast come up a little bit as well. The Forsaken Beast throws fireballs at the Abyssal Berserkers, and the Archers unload their dreadful piercing barrage, and 11 damage go into my Abyssal Berserkers. They are just wiped straight off the board. And yet I learn nothing. Hopefully next game I'll remember them. One of these days they will get into melee. And that's the board after my Berserkers have been removed. Onto the right flank. The Reconnoiteurs have retreated just a little bit. They want to have a wide field of vision in case I get a bit aggressive. And the Beast moves up cunningly behind that obstacle. I've got Pathfinder, but Pathfinder does not work on obstacles. So if I'm getting ready to charge that Beast, I'll have to take the hindered penalty. And that's the state of the board at the end of our turn 1. Abyssal Dwarfs, turn 2. The turn starts out with me moving my gargoyles up into the centre. I'm moving them there because I am very conscious that my very slow dwarfs are not going to keep up well with the cavalry which are looming over them. So this is the moment for the gargoyles to be sacrificial. They move up out of their position, and my overlord pops just behind them so that he's ready to act as a roadblock, being the tough little fellow he is. I shuffle my immortals back a little bit just so that the Forsaker can't see them and get in some nasty charges. I advance up my fire teams either side of the Black Souls horde, which also shuffles forward a bit. There's a general forward movement. I keep my immortals forward enough so that they can release their mutant dogs at the Order of the Brotherhood there at the top of the screen, but they do no damage whatsoever because defense 5 is nice. On a sad note, both of my mortars miss, so they have hit once out of 4 times this game. We'll keep track of how these mortars perform. Over into the centre of the field, my golems are getting rather close to that objective. I advance up my half-breeds, you can see up there over at the top. And the gargoyles, they shuffle a bit towards the centre, because I'm not sure what I want to do with them yet. I'm also moving my half-breed champion up because I want to be a bit more aggressive with him. And I don't mind if he gets fireballed because he has regeneration. Brotherhood Turn 2. So, this is what the board looks like before he moves things. And very quickly there's a lot of chaos. You can see at the top of the screen there that his Forsaker, his big winged birdie over there, outsmarted me a little bit. I thought he was going to try and go for a flank charge or something, but he has just pivoted right, moved to the other side of the house, and pivoted left. Essentially moving sideways 10 inches, and now he has got nice annoying charges onto the rear and flanks of my line, which is very annoying, and he can set himself up to get into a lot of trouble there. This reveals a weakness of my deployment, because I really should have had my half-breed champion on this side to defend against this very problem. Nevertheless, I have to deal with what I have, and in the following turns I'll have to redeploy some of my fire teams against him. The Exemplar charges the Immortals for 2 damage. The Gargoyles get charged by Knights for 10 damage and rout on the spot. There's general movement forwards, apart from the Spears who shuffle back slightly. And then the Archers and the Forsaken Beast do 3 damage with their combined shooting at my fire team. And you can see this is what things look like after the mess. The gargoyles are gone, and I'm feeling rather exposed at this point. That Black Souls horde is defense 5 21-23 nerve. But with the Forsaker on the flank and a lot of cavalry in front, I'm not feeling very safe at all. Moving along to the other side, the Reconnaisseurs have outmaneuvered me. Now, looking at this, on the turn previous, the Reconnaisseurs were facing directly to my side of the board. Now, they've got nimble, so they can pivot twice. They've moved again. And as I've looked at the picture, I've thought, hang on, it looks like they've rotated more than 90 degrees to actually be able to face my cavalry there. I think that might have been a minor error that my opponent made, but with the way the rest of the game out, it wouldn't have made a difference. The most that could have happened was it would have taken them another turn to face my cavalry and charge them, which wouldn't have mattered in the scheme of things. Small error. The Forsaken Beast edges forward up to that terrain and throws a fireball at my half-breeds, does 2 damage, not a big deal. And this is how things are starting to look at the end of the second turn. So I'm feeling very nervous on my left flank. I'm missing my chaff, my gargoyles, and my very expensive chaff, my berserkers, which shouldn't have been used as chaff in the first place. I've got a force. You can't see it in the picture because it's not wide enough, but I've got a Forsaker threatening my flank and rear. I've got a lot of cavalry in front of me, not feeling good. However, the right flank's looking pretty alright. I'm lining up some charges. I've nearly taken the middle of the board with my fantastic Defense 6 golems. I'm feeling okay at this point. Let's see how things go. Abyssal Dwarfs, turn 3. I make the charge. My half-breeds go in, and even though they're hindered, at -1 to hit, and they don't get their Thunderous Charge, they still lose 6 points of damage, and they even regain 1 back thanks to their regeneration. They don't break anything, but it's a good start. The Gargoyles move up to be annoying, to stop those nimble cavalry from threatening my half-breeds, because I really can't have them being flanked right now, can I? Meanwhile, on the other side of the board, if you look onto the left side of the screen, you might be able to see that I've sent my fire team to flame on the Forsaker. It did 3 points of damage, taking him up to a total of 10, and that was enough to rout him. That was huge. First of all, that had a bounty token, so that's given me 1 point. 1 point towards victory. And it's also removed the biggest threat to my formation at the moment. So it's hard to overstate how important that is for the course of the game. Both pieces of artillery fire, and both of them miss. So now we have hit once in 6 shots. I have rotated my Black Souls Horde slightly, just to give my flank and not the rear to the Forsaker in case it survived its burning, which thankfully it did not. I've sent my Overlord. If you look in the middle of the screen, there's a little red dot in front of the Knights. He's gone there and he's punched them for 3 damage, and he's just going to be an annoying little roadblock. My Immortals smack up the Exemplar for 4 points of damage. What else is happening? My other fire team isn't really in range of anything, so he just sort of chills and tries not to get in the way too much. And heading towards the centre, the Decimators get within 1 foot of the beast, blast him and do 4 points of damage for a good start. The other things you can note is I have advanced my golems up, and I've rotated them so that they're facing the spearmen, facing the beast, and I've also brought in my half-breed. I'm racing my half-breed across the board because in the movement phase I didn't know that Forsaker was dead. So I'm racing him so that next turn he'll be able to respond to the Forsaker and smack him up a bit. So there he is, he's moved in front. This will turn out to be a critical error, both the movement of the golems and of the half-breed. Take a second to figure out what could be the problem here, what could go wrong. You probably can't tell from this photo actually, but it'll come pretty soon. Okay, here's the state of the board after all the mess has been removed. You can see that the Forsaker is gone and things are looking nicer for me. Carrying on. And there's just a nice little action shot of my Overlord punching up some of those knights. And believe me, they deserved it. At this point I've got 3 points in the bag and my opponent has none at the start of his third turn, because I'm holding the centre for 2 points and I've killed his bounty unit with range attack for 1. Now, I was feeling quite secure on the left side of the board, and in this very, very grainy bit of photo, you can see that all the knights are really packed together. The one in the centre is right in front of a regiment, so it's not going anywhere. The Order of the Redemption on the left have to fit between the Overmaster and the Exemplar to fit through to get to the Black Souls if they want to do that. And it looks like the knights on the other side, I don't know if my cursor will show up, but the knights unit behind the front unit of knights, they don't look like they'll have much room to manoeuvre around and actually get a charge off. So I was pretty darn confident that those units were not going to be able to charge. And I have to say, with a great degree of sadness, that this was not to be the case. So, the Exemplar, being height 2, was able to see over the Immortals, and it's already gone and charged the War Machine behind them, so it's gone. The Cavalry, the Order of the Redemption, have moved forward, done one pivot, and you can see here that they can just barely, exactly, make it into the Black Souls. It was a very, very tight arrangement, but they were in fact able to do it. And it was no small help to my opponent, because they end up doing about 13 damage themselves. They are a remarkably powerful, punchy unit. And my opponent pulls off some other chicanery as well. So you can see that in the midst of the chaos, he says that my archer's going to shoot at your dragon team. And it's like, no way! There's not enough room. So we measure the front of his unit, the dead centre of his archer unit, and I get my laser pointer out to the gap, and you can see how small that gap is. But it's there. You can clearly see it's legit. He threaded that needle. I was very impressed. I would not have seen that myself. So this very messy picture shows everything that's happened. I've had 2 knight units into the front of my Black Souls, which is very bad news because they're a bounty unit. And they're a key point of my formation, my line. I've also... Remember how I said that half-breed was in the wrong spot? It was going to be a mistake? Well, it turns out I hadn't measured to check that it was out of range of the spearmen, because they're only a 10-inch charge. But I should have measured, because he was 9.5 inches away. I had just assumed it was clear. It looked clear, but it wasn't. So the spearmen get into the half-breed. The beast charges into the front of the golems, but that's not the mistake of the golems being made known yet. But on this slide you can see I've got some text boxes. These are all of the surprises I got this turn. I was really surprised when the Exemplar charged around my Immortals and got to the mortar at the back. I was really surprised when the archers were able to shoot at my dragon team. But these are secondary considerations. The main awful things were that both units of knights could get to my Black Souls, because that doomed them. My Black Souls aren't going to hit back. The second awful thing is that the spearmen are so far forwards now that they've locked down my hero, and that if my hero dies, those spearmen are going to be able to overrun. Just critically awful. Really, really bad. Let's get going. So you can see the combats here. 23 damage those Black Souls take from both units of knights. Just devastating. Absolutely devastating. So they're routed, and my opponent gets 2 points for killing the unit. The good news is that his Knights unit up the top does no damage whatsoever to my Overlord, which makes me warm and happy inside. It makes me feel good about taking that unit. I've never seen someone else take an Overlord in an Abyssal Dwarf list. He's often looked over because he's very slow and his nerve's not that good, but you know, he's pretty solid. I like him. I might bring him again. My fire team down the bottom takes a single point of damage, and he's not wavered, which pleases me. Let's move on to the right. Oh, also you can see that that Exemplar, he hits my mortar for 3 points of damage, and that's enough to rout him today. So there goes my 130-point war machine. Okay, this mess. So, the spearmen charge into the half-breed, do 6 damage, and my half-breed's not feeling very courageous today, and so he's routed straight off like that. And then, after a bit of discussion about whether his spearman unit could advance, because they wouldn't be able to fit properly and things of that nature, we eventually ruled they would be able to, and to contact the golems. We rolled d6 for advancing after defeating an individual, and they made contact with the golems. So between the Forsaken Beast and the Spearman, the golems now hit for 4 damage. So here's what else is going on. If you look at the left side of the board, you can see the big gap where my Black Souls had been. The Redemption Cavalry have now turned to face the left side of the board, the flank of the Immortals. The other unit, the Knights, have turned to face right, so they're staring at the flank of my Decimators. So now that they've gotten that big point, they've turned around ready to wheel and chop up the rest of my army. If you look to the right of that very tall house in the middle of the board, you will see the Forsaken Beast standing there. I had charged him with my half-breeds, and I had really expected him to stay and fight them. And him turning and walking away was very surprising to me, and it was a very good idea, because it left me flat-footed, and of course, with the golems I have put forward, I've rotated them, he has got a very clear flank charge lined up for next turn. I don't have a good response to this. This is very, very bad news, and I'm being punished for my mistake of advancing the golems as far and as awkwardly as I did. So yeah, that sucks. Also moving over to the right, you can see on the far right hand side the Reconnoiteurs have charged my gargoyles for 4 points of damage, but have not broken them. So, Abyssal Dwarfs turn 4. I have 3 points and my opponent has 2. Big action, lots of fighting. So, my Overmaster, right at the top there, charges into the Knights, does another 2 points of damage. They're sitting on 8 at the moment, but I don't break them. My Immortals charge into the Standard Bearer for 2 points of damage. He's on 6. He wavers, but he does not break. My Golems... There's no good choice for what I do here, but I figured I could kind of do some damage onto the Beast. I charge him. Then I recall that the Beast has Ensnare, so I'm hitting on 5s, which is not good. And I still do 6 points of damage, total of 10 I waver him, but that's not good enough. Now, with everything I can muster, I shoot everything I have left at the Redemption Knights. My artillery misses. Now, for those of you keeping score at home, that is 7 shots and 1 hit. I miss again. With the breath weapons, I have 32 breath weapon shots go into them, 12 of them piercing, and I get 7 damage onto the Redemption Knights. Nowhere near enough to stop their rampage, but a solid amount of damage. They are regenerating though, so not all is peachy. However, as the game goes on, you'll see that they actually don't regenerate from this, which is a peculiar stroke of luck. So looking around here, a bit of damage being spread around, but no routing, nothing decisive, a bit of wavering. That's really it. I move my half-breeds up to anticipate the response of my golems being flanked. I'm really hoping my golems can last a turn, because if I recharge the Forsaken Beast, I'll be able to remove it. The gargoyles recover a point of damage, but they can't do anything else because they're wavered. So, Brotherhood turn 4. Now, this photo is terrible, but if you follow with what I'm saying, you might be able to see what's going on here. The Redemption Knights charged into the rear of my Overmaster, who had been facing the Knights in front of them. So you can see they're sort of bunched up there next to that 11 damage bit there. This really got rid of him. Between the two units they did 11 points of damage, but it was a mistake. Because if you can see down the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, there is my Immortals regiment. Straight in front of them is an individual, and straight after that is the flank of that redemption unit that just took 7 damage. Tasty. Foreshadowing as well, how's that? On the other side of the centre, we can see the knights have charged into the... what are they? Start with D. Destroyers? Decimators. The Decimators have been charged by the knights and take 4 points of damage. Spared from worse damage because they were hindered by the obstacle. You can also see the Forsaken Beast is backed off in the middle. The archers have tried to shoot at the Dragonfire team, only do 1 point of damage for a total of 5, but it does waver him. You may be wondering why the archers have been so ineffectual shooting at these fire teams. Well, that's because they're individuals, so they're taking a -1 penalty to hit. Continuing on, the Spearman and the Forsaken Beast really piled on the damage. Well, they didn't do that much. Between the two of them, and one in the flank, by the way, they did 5 damage to those golems, for a total of 9. But they rolled nerve and got exactly on 17, just enough to knock them out of the game. A bit unlucky, but so they're gone. That's 2 points I've lost. Because I no longer control the centre, my opponent does. That's a 4-point swing to my opponent. But also the golems unit had a bounty on them. So my opponent just got 4 points and I lost 2. So remember when I was saying that golem unit advancing forward was a mistake? Yeah, that's what I meant by that. So the Forsaken Beast with the red hair is turning around and is facing my half-breeds. The Reconnoiteurs finish off the gargoyles with 2 points of damage, and they advance ready to recharge my half-breeds. And you can just see there's that token in the middle of the board within the control of the Spearman. Okay, start of my turn 5. I am on a single point, my opponent is on 6 points at the moment. Things are looking very bleak indeed. My... what do I call them? Immortals, that's what they're called. My Immortals charge into that flag bearer, do 5 points of damage for a total of 7, and rout them. That's very good. And then I measure, and I can see that there is a 1.5 inch gap between my Immortals and the flank of those very juicy Redemption Knights. So I roll my dice, and I get a 4. Hooray, yes, I get to charge the flank. And I do very well out of it. I do 6 points of damage in the flank, they're on a total of 15 now, and I rout the buggers. Fantastic news. And more than that, because I hadn't charged them in the movement phase, I've carried on in the combat phase with an overrun. I was able to shoot them in the shooting phase with my dragon team to do another 2 points of damage. So all of that really helped. 15 points of damage total. Wipe them off the board. 2 points for me. That's good. However, the rest of the board is not good. I Banechant my Decimators, who punch back for a mighty 2 damage on the Knights. Not doing much. The archers at the back are sitting quite safe and unmolested by my forces. My half-breeds take the charge onto the beast around the centre there, but they're hindered because they were still snagged onto the obstacle. So they only did 2 points of damage for a total of 8, did not shift him. And that was mostly all I was able to do. You can see that I've got very few things left, and what I do have are not long for this world. And there's just a close-up of that Forsaken Beast being charged there. To little effect. And the broader state of the board. You can see on the left-hand side the Exemplar is giving my Mortar some trouble. In fact, last turn I forgot to say it, but he did a few points of damage. The Reconnoiteurs are on the top of the hill there, overlooking my half-breeds. They have movement 9. With an 18-inch charge, they can reach the back there. Brotherhood Turn 5. I'm on 3 points, and my opponent is on 6. And he did... he gets lots of charges in. He is charging a lot. Both of the beasts go into the front of the half-breeds and the reconnoiteurs into the back. 14 points of damage. Yeah, that just routs them. The unit of knights in front of the half-breeds, sorry, in front of the immortals on the left-hand side, sees a tricky charge onto my fire team. Takes it, does a ton of damage, and wipes them off the board. The archers in the back, that should be a yellow line, not a red line, shoot at my other fire team in the bottom left-hand corner for 2 points of damage, and that unit's okay. The spearmen flank my decimators, and with the knights in the front as well, it's a ton of damage, and they're routed. So, 3 units routed. All I have left on the entire board are my mortar, who is currently being hit up, my dragon fire team in the bottom left-hand corner, and my immortals, who are speed 4. And there you can see that very blurry, grainy, and victorious exemplar who defeated the mortar which had been there. And here's that close-up action shot of my half-breeds being routed from the field, giving my opponent a further 2 points for collecting the bounty on them. And then the units facing away after their victory. And the extremely blurry state of the board. The only bounty unit left on the board are the archers, safe in the forest, and then you can see there's the center token which my opponent has control of. So Abyssal Dwarfs turn 6. My Dragon Fire team walks up to those knights, does a single point of damage to them, and actually manages to rout them. That was a very pleasant surprise, so that's one problem taken care of, but that doesn't get me any points. My half-breeds are running not half-breeds, my immortal regiment are running as fast towards those archers as their little legs will take them, bounding up an entire 8 inches. And that's all I do. There's the state of the board. My opponent's turn 6. I'm on 3 points, he is on 8 points. His archers pelt my immortals for 4 points of damage on a total of 6, but that doesn't bother them, they're holding. His exemplar knight comes up, smacks around my dragon fire team for 5 points of damage, and they are annihilated. You can see my slave driver there with the flag is still around, but my opponent doesn't seem to be much bothered by him. The spears turn around, nothing else of significance happens. Now, I can't win at this point. I simply cannot win. But we decided to give him to have a turn 7. We rolled for it, we did roll a turn 7. But just to see whether I could actually get a point from those archers. So I charge them, and I do 6 points of damage, even though I'm hindered. And I roll a double 6 on the nerve, which is amazing, and it wavers them, but that gets to a total of 18, and I think they've got a nerve of 21. So it was a valiant effort, but I was unable to rout those archers. There's the final state of the board, and here's the final result. The Abyssal Dwarfs had 3 points, and the Brotherhood had 8 points. A very solid victory for the Brotherhood, well deserved. Now it's time for a little bit of analysis, I think. I brought this up during the video, but on my 3rd turn, this is really where I lost it. Bringing up my half-breed champion into a stupid spot and not measuring. Made him vulnerable and removed him from the game. Having those golems come out of the forest as they do and pivot was completely unnecessary. They should have stayed in the forest so that anything charging them would have been hindered. Because defense 6 with a hindered opponent is the dream. Coming out of the forest made it easier for them. And I exposed my own flank. It was a very foolish decision. And that one decision there was a 6-point swing. I lost 2 points, my opponent gained 4. That decision more than anything else is what affected this game, I think. And you can see the outcome here, because you can see that Forsaken Beast approaching to destroy the future of those golems. The other thing that I feel affected the outcome of the game was the very surprising way that those knights were able to charge my Black Souls. I mean, maybe you were watching this and this wasn't surprising to you at all. Maybe you saw it and like, oh yeah, those knights have a good shot. It surprised me at the time, that's all I can say. But yes, definitely game-changing. If those Black Souls had stayed around, if I had been able to attack those knights one at a time, it could have been different. If those Black Souls had been charged by only one unit of knights, survived it and been able to hit back, this could have been a different game. But, you know, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Well, this has been quite a long one. I hope you've enjoyed my battle report. Thanks for all your time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around, folks. Bye!